11:35 on a big show clock, being brought to you by the Iowa Agriculture Water Alliance. Clean water in Iowa starts right here. You bet it does. Starts with you, no matter where you're at. Clean water in Iowa starts with all of us. The Iowa Ag Water Alliance, they have a wonderful website with the Conservation Compass. Go on their website and hit that button up in the upper right-hand corner that says Conservation Compass on there. And it will open up a lot of information ranging from what practices are being done out there to how to pay for them and how you can stack some of that payment to really, get close to having some of these practices paid for on your farm. The Iowa Agriculture Water Alliance, you bet, a good group to get to know better. And we'll be talking about them. We talk about them throughout the week. We also celebrate a lot of projects on Wednesdays, Clean Water Wednesdays here on the Big Show. Well, before we talk with Brian Hoops, I want to remind you of a word that could net you a $250 phone call. It's $2,500. Yeah, okay. That's the big time. We had the $1,000 ones.
Mm-hmm.
This is in celebrating the 250th birthday of the U.S. So $2,500.
Yeah. Over the course of the contest, we give away $250,000.
And we're really proud of Nathan because he has entered every one so far in the last couple of days.
Still haven't called.
Still haven't called. Of course, he puts the radio station number in there, kind of a giveaway, and they recognize, hey, that's one of our numbers. The folks that out there to enter, here's how you do it. You go to the website of the radio station you're listening to and enter America in the little pop-up box. We'd love to be sending $2,500 your way. America is the word this hour. Well, on the telephone line, Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions. Brian, let's talk markets today. We've got a downward-moving soybean market, and I mean, it's kind of drifting downward. I wouldn't say we're in a free fall by any means, but there is some downward pressure in beans. Anything in particular going on?
Yeah, good to talk with you again, Bob. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of liquidation across a host of these markets here, especially the wheat and corn. Soybeans are getting some as well. Now, from a chart-based perspective, soybeans really haven't dropped percentage-wise as much as what corn and wheat have. They've held in there relatively better, and part of the reason is support coming out of soybean oil, which has just been at contract highs last several trading sessions. Part of that support's coming out of RVO mandates, strengthening that soybean oil, and I think it offers probably a higher level of support, and maybe we need to say that we need to have better yields because of the Chinese demand and because of these RVO mandates. So maybe that soybean market hasn't seen as much liquidation until we get a little further in the growing season, but certainly these grain markets looking at good growing conditions, weather that looks to be very good here now and good for the next 15 days or so. Planting, emergence, all just at or above the normal pace, and good to excellent ratings, very similar to last year. So it's really hard to hang your hat on anything real bullish other than saying, hey, maybe we're going to have some sort of a weather issue sometime down the road. Maybe that's July or August. We may have something, but from what price level do we start to bottom and start to rally these grain markets from?
Well, just a quick look at the percent planted for corn here in Iowa, 97%, so we're pretty much wrapped up. Indiana is a little bit behind on planting, not a lot, as you mentioned. Things pretty much wrapping up corn planting. And then as far as soybeans planted here in Iowa, 95% of the crop is in the ground, ahead of where we were a year ago. Not a lot, but a little bit ahead of where we were a year ago. Illinois and Indiana about on the same pace. So, yeah, you're spot on when you say that as far as planting goes, we're ahead a little bit of where we were. Conditions look to be pretty good. So what's going to have to happen to put some spark in the soybean market, Brian, or have we put in the highs, do you think, for the season?
Yeah, I think we have put our highs in for corn, soybeans, probably wheat for the season, unless you get that weather phenomenon that's going to drive yields from these areas where the trade is assuming at least trend line, maybe above type yields, to something well below it. That's what is really needed to turn the tide here and push the markets back higher. we're starting to maybe divorce ourselves a little bit from these geopolitical events. Yesterday we saw $5 to $7 rally in crude oil. The grains really didn't care. Today we're up another dollar in crude oil, just kind of starting to move higher here at mid-session. And the grains, again, don't seem to care. It was back when we were kind of planting in March and April and talking about the size of this year's crop and what we needed to plant, having concerns about fertilizers and energy costs, fuel costs. That's when the markets really were reacting to what's happening with crude oil. Now that the crop has been planted, a lot of the crop has been fertilized, certainly not all of it, but a lot of it has had some fertilizer. Market is less sensitive to that outside noise or those economic indicators. So it's almost right now probably 90% influenced by what's happening with the weather and the fund liquidation that we've seen ongoing really since the early part of May.
Let's move over to live cattle and feeder cattle. We've got a downward moving market there. $1 to $2 lower. Looks like live market feeder cattle almost $5 lower. What's going on in feeder cattle?
Yeah, feeder cattle having a real struggle. Some of the sale barns, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City, two really widely watched sale barns because they have so many head running through there, really disappointing in their sales yesterday. They took Memorial Day off, but they have a sale every Monday. And sales yesterday, the number of cattle being traded were down from 2 weeks prior to that. And then steers and heifers were 5 to 15 lower, in some cases $20 lower. So it was a very soft cash market, and that is pulling the feeder cattle index down along with it. That is down another $2.86 this morning to 364. So we're still well premium to where the futures are, but that index is coming down, and it feels like the cash markets in the live cattle probably could come down again this week. The cutout values are higher at midday, but it's a very soft feeling right now as far as this cash markets go.
Brian, we're going to let you go for an hour and 10 minutes and come back and get some targets for the grain market moving forward. If folks want to talk markets with you, though, how can they do that?
You can find a list of our offices at our website, MidwestMarketSolutions.com, or if you want to give me a call directly, the number is 417-501-5132.
Thanks, Brian. Talk to you in an hour and 10 minutes. Brian Hoops with We Need to Get Dwayne out on the Farm Beat.
Food, fuel, and fun. We speak farm. This is The Big Show.
Well, here we are, 12:55 on the Big Show clock today. It means it's time to take a look at what's going on in the marketplace. And we're on the telephone line right now with Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions. Brian talked a little bit ago about what's happening in the grain trade. We're in a downward moving market, both corn and soybeans. So let's take it out a couple of weeks. December corn, November beans. What do you expect to see?
Well, I think we're probably looking at more liquidation by the fund traders unless we get some sort of that weather event. Normally, your highs from a seasonal standpoint are scored about the 22nd, 23rd of June during that week, between there and the 4th of July, certainly. So, we really have about 3 weeks of time here to have some sort of a weather rally. And it's going to have to get pretty hot, pretty dry. Those dry areas are shrinking after this week's rains. And, there's some areas out there that aren't perfect, certainly, but I think the trade believes that things are similar to what they were last year when we produced big, massive corn, soybean yields. So it looks like we're going to continue to grind this market lower. This week, we've blown out some key support areas for December corn. That would be about 469, 472. We're below those areas, and a close, I think, on Friday below that is going to tell funds to continue to liquidate. And if you get below that, you just don't have a lot of strong technical chart support. We probably overshot to the upside, and we'll probably overshoot to the downside. That's kind of how these markets work, is you put in too much premium, take too much away, and somewhere in the middle is a fair fundamental value. So it's very possible before we see some sort of a bottom in the market by harvest time frame, we're trading 440 to 445 on that December corn futures contract.
Yeah, it sounds like highs are in for the year then, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks before we normally see them, huh?
It sure feels that way. And like I said, unless you get a really adverse weather stretch where it turns hot and dry and the yields are really impacted. I don't think too much rain is going to impact it at this point in time. It's going to have to come from like a hot and dry scenario. Soybeans do have support around 11.74 in the November contract. Something below that or trade close below it is probably going to usher in a lot of that technical selling. We do have, a lot of Chinese commitments. We have RVO commitments. So we have a kind of a strong base of support for the soybeans. So I don't think your downside is as pronounced as what the corn market could be, but you might be looking at 11.30 for harvest lows sometime later this summer if things continue to go well during this growing period.
Let's switch gears and talk cattle right now. What do you think we're going to see cash market at this week?
Well, yeah, I want to say we're going to be higher this week. The showless numbers are still pretty tight, below 200,000. Really going to depend on what happens in the next couple of days with the cutouts. They were higher today. If they're higher this afternoon and into tomorrow, I think we could see a little bit of strength in these cattle futures, anticipating that cash is going to be more steady towards the higher end. But if the cutouts weaken here, then after today, look for softer cash trade to develop one more time.
So if folks want to talk markets with you, Brian, how can they do that?
Well, you can find our website address at MidwestMarketSolutions.com. You'll find a list of all of our numbers. You can follow us on Twitter, Midwest Markets, and at Brian Hoops. And my number is 417-501-5132.
Thanks, Brian. Brian Hoops with us, wrapping up this segment of the Big Show.